Keeping the Recipes with Transit Arts.
One, two, three. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay. All right. So, hey everybody, this is Andre with Transit Arts, and welcome to Keeping the Recipes, a podcast in which we talk to, commune, and kind of fellowship with fellow seniors in our community. Fellow elders in our community. And today we have an awesome guest by the name of
Deborah James Tucker.
Miss Deborah. She is super phenomenal. And if you want to hear any more of our podcasts, please follow us at either Transit Arts on our Instagram pages, our Facebook, or you can go to our website at keepingtherecipes.com. All one word. Any information about that will be on our website as well at transitarts.com. And so, like I said before, this is just a series in which we just talk to our elders and we ask guidance. Sometimes we have conversations, sometimes we tell stories back and forth, and really just try to have a good time. And so this week's subject is about actually COVID and your experience with COVID. But before we get into all of that, could you inform these people how awesome you really are?
I don't know if that's for me to say, but I guess my story really starts with I was a lawyer in a former life. I practiced law for about 10-15 years. And then something happened in my life, losing a very dear family member that made me realize really how short life was, and that if I wanted to do this art thing, then I needed to go ahead and do it. So I did from there I did a European tour, and I kind of never looked back.
Wow. European, so how did that go? What was that about?
I was doing Porgy and Bess. I don't know you know Porgy and Bess.
I do not.
You need to know Porgy and Bess. I should have told you this in our classes. Porgy and Bess is an opera, all black opera written by Gershwin.
What?
Traditional, and he specifically left in his will that it would always be performed by all black actors and singers. Yeah, it's very well known. Well, maybe it's not so well known now, but a very well known black opera. I did that. That's what the tour began with, and then as I was there, I started doing things and other things, jazz and stuff like that, in nightclubs, and yeah.
Jazz, nightclubs.
Yeah, you need to know Porgy and Bess. Oh my gosh.
That's terrible.
Look that up.
Yeah, she actually teaches our singing workshops here at Transit Arts, which you can find all that information at transitarts.com. But that's not about that. It's about you. And so you have traveled the world singing, performing. I got the pleasure to see one of your performances and to see how important family is to you, and that specific member of your family who unfortunately did pass away, to see how big of an influence he really had on you. And just from the performance I could tell he was a phenomenal person.
Very phenomenal person, yeah. Even if he wasn't my brother, I always say that he would have been my friend, just because of the person that he was, the spirit that he had. Still has,
yes. And I feel like maybe some of that has kind of rubbed off on you as well.
Oh, for sure. He was one of the first people, because I grew up in a singing family. My family sings gospel. Everybody in my family sings. I mean, everyone. I say everybody, I mean everybody. And they really sing. So it was but my singing was always kind of different. It was they kind of teased me for being like the opera. I sounded too much like opera. I sounded too much. But he was the first person to tell me that what you have is something that you need to grab hold of and get out to the world. So that's
wonderful.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people need that.
Yeah.
To have that someone to reach out and be like, hey, go do this. Just do it and see. And actually, you were the person who, when it came to singing, you were that person for me, because before I was like, I don't know how to sing, I'm terrible, and you were like, no, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tackle this.
I remember hearing you, because I think we must have been over at Central, and I don't know, you were singing or humming something. I was like,
yes,
get over here. You don't sing in front of me.
Playing around on the piano, you were like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and investigate this. I'm like, I don't know what you see in me, and you were like, you're gonna see. And so you were that person for me. And so to to see where that kind of influence comes from. It's really, really amazing to hear from you. And so, where do you come from exactly?
I'm from Mansfield, about an hour up the road, up
Okay.
71. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Grew up in
Yeah.
Mansfield. Then you left to go to college. I went to Denison for undergrad. Then I went to the University of Michigan Law School. And then I lived in Chicago for a while. And then I came back here.
Chi-town. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And you said that your family was a singing family.
Oh yeah.
Has the arts really been like a generational thing, or?
Yeah, singing was particularly. I had an uncle who sang with Sam Cooke.
Yes.
Sam Cooke did gospel quartets before he was a pop singer, and my uncle grew up singing gospel quartets, so he knew Sam Cooke in those quartet circles. I have a cousin who was a chair of music at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I mean, everybody in my family just sings. I always tell people when I went to school, I just thought that everybody did that because we would always like gather around the piano and play and sing, and I just thought that's what people did. I didn't know it was anything special.
Yeah.
That was
That's so
interesting.
cool. Just have a family. Just hey, you wanna go sing? And sure, y'all just jam out.
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
awesome. That is so super cool. And so you went to college. You for law, correct?
Yeah, actually, my undergraduate degree was in philosophy.
Really?
Yeah. Just because I just always thought that was something that would investigate the big questions in life. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do with philosophy? I go to law school. But actually, I always wanted to be a lawyer, too. So that was, philosophy was just one of those things that I thought would serve me okay in law school.
And how was your kind of journey through the law, like because I only have experience watching TV shows and things of that nature, and I'm pretty sure it's not like
Well, actually, the reason that I thought about being a lawyer was because I used to watch Perry Mason. You know Perry Mason?
I do not.
Oh no, there's so many things to tell you. Perry Mason was an old TV show, 50s probably. Perry Mason was a criminal lawyer, and he always got people to confess on the stand and everything. It was very unrealistic.
Yeah.
But that got me thinking about law. But the kind of law that I did wasn't criminal. I did employment discrimination mainly. Yeah.
Now, how's your experience with that, and how that's interesting?
Very interesting. I worked for the Civil Rights Commission, doing hearings when people would file complaints about discrimination based on race or sex or handicap. Then I would actually hear the cases and make a decision or make a determination for the commission to. But they normally approved what I said.
Oh, okay.
But it was interesting because one of the first things, this is making me remember, one of the first cases I had, and this was not that long ago, it was in probably late 80s, was about somebody had burnt a Ku Klux Klan cross on somebody's yard.
Okay.
Somebody that the person worked with, and that was, I thought.
That's dreadful.
Yeah, wasn't that long ago. Wasn't that long ago at all.
That's absolutely terrible to hear that. I've only heard stories through my grandmother, and but for you to kind of experience that on a not gonna say first case level, but like to hear those kind of stories, at your time, like how does that make you feel? Like,
Well, it was interesting because it kind of wasn't my first because my family's from rural Alabama, so we used to go, pack up the station wagon every summer and drive to Alabama, and we'd have big coolers of pop, and my mother would fry chicken and make pork chops, and we just thought it was a great big fun time, but I didn't really realize until later that we had to do that because there wouldn't have been a place for us to stop.
Right.
There wouldn't have been a place for us to go to the bathroom. So we took toilet paper, went across. We just thought it was a great big, party. We didn't really realize until much later that there wasn't a place that would have taken us in on the road.
Insane.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about now. When I think about some of the things that we did, I go, oh. But my parents really took care that we didn't really experience the brunt of that. We just, it was a big party for us.
And so now, just kind of picking your brain, what do you think about, our society today, looking at the differences between, how you grew up and now,
One thing is I think in some ways we're losing track of our history, of that kind of history, because I don't know that it's actually being taught or where it might be being taught, except maybe places like this, spaces like this. Because it was interesting, because I do a one-woman show, and I went to a school to do it, and when I was preparing the piece that I was going to do from, the teacher asked me, this was an advanced English class in a charter school, and he asked me what he should have the kids do to prepare for it. I said, well, you should have them read James Baldwin. And he did not know who James Baldwin was. Now, this is a teacher of an advanced English program who did not know James Baldwin. Do you know James Baldwin? Let's see, but this is not your fault. If this teacher did not know James Baldwin was a very phenomenal writer of the 50s, 60s, 70s even, I would say, but wrote novels and essays really talking about the racial situation of his time. The Fire Next Time is a piece that you should read, James Baldwin. But I mean, go on YouTube and look up James Baldwin on the Dick Cavett Show. That will tell you who James Baldwin was.
I see.
But but anyway, so that kind of proves my point.
Yeah.
But he did not know who James Baldwin was. But,
James Baldwin.
they finally figured it out. But I just thought, if he doesn't know, the kids are not going to know. And where are they going to learn it?
Yeah, whatever going to learn it.
Where are we going to connect?
Yeah, because the only history, like I get that from my grandmother, through my grandmother and my mother, those stories of, what to do, what not to do, how do you step, how not to step when it comes to police and things of that nature. So, it's actually what's really interesting is now they are trying to teach it more thoroughly in schools, but it's becoming more of a hassle through this idea of it's called critical race theory. Yes. And so there's a huge debate going on right now in which should it be taught in schools, and one side of it is saying, oh, this should be taught because kids need to know the real history of America. Like, it's not the history which you see in textbooks where it's just about the war and then another war and then maybe some fights in here and there and then some important white people, and then that's about it. Like there's so much that's excluded just from a Native American side, or from the African American side, or even the other minority sides that we just don't talk about because, it kind of pushes a certain kind of narrative. And then the other side is saying, well, that's going to teach us, that we have to hate white people and we got to have white people bow down to us. And, I feel like sometimes people don't understand how much of American history is excluded, because the history, the winners write the history books,
That's well, first of all, people throw around that phrase critical race theory, and I don't think people who throw it around really know what it is. It really started out as, it wasn't really a group of theories, it wasn't a group of ways of looking at things. It was a pedagogy, it was a particular way of studying, and that really was it really wasn't ever taught. If a pedagogy can be taught, it came out of college. So I really think people, when they say that, what they're saying is that they're against hearing anything negative with respect to race relations, which is a whole nother subject. Because, well, this is another story from the old days when I was growing up. But when I was growing up, my history book, and I specifically remember this, had one paragraph about slavery, and what it essentially said was, slave masters didn't really treat slaves that bad because they were their property and they wouldn't have wanted to mess up their property. And that was kind of it. Boom. It really wasn't until I got to college that really we did an in-depth study about race and about black history in general. So that's an interesting thing. So on the one hand, I think some people mean black history when they say critical race history. Some people mean, oh, you shouldn't say anything bad about what America ever did. I think we got to clarify what we mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, now let's actually get into the topic of this week, which, like I said before, is COVID. How has your experience been with COVID? Because I've been talking with different members of the community, from teachers to artists to just general like blue collar people, and I know for artists especially, it's been incredibly rough because the revenue in which we partake in deals with people gathering together.
Yeah.
And how's that been going for you?
It's been a real challenge. That was a great portion of my income was on regular performances in spaces where people gathered. And that kind of, when that was cut short, it was like, yikes, what do we do with this now? So we did some virtual things, but it's still, the revenue hasn't really come back to where it was before. You know.
Yes, and now, like I've seen slowly, some people are kind of trying to bring that the revenue back up. I just recently went to a concert with my girlfriend, and it was outside. It had to be outside. There was only a limited amount of people who could come, and we had to be spaced out. We couldn't clump up together, like you would normally do when your favorite, person or artists are gathering together. And so, with that's just on the big time scale. That's somebody who has a big name, and I know for the smaller time artists, it's not smaller, but scale wise, it's been increasingly rough. For a lot of people. And how have you been kind of like navigating this? What have you been doing?
Sometimes limping through the days, sometimes, but also I've been working. I took the opportunity to do more writing, to start working on, like I say, I've been working on a record.
Yes.
Which is, it's coming along.
Yes.
And it's a record that mainly deals with the voice as an instrument. I don't really have too much other instrumentation, so that's been helpful in terms of the need not to have to gather so much. So that's been good, and then like the writing has been interesting.
It's been interesting.
I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be, but I'm working on something. I don't know what it is. It might be a novel, it might be a show. I don't know what it is.
That's gonna be
but I'm
amazing.
just writing.
I know that. Your shows have always been amazing to me.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay. And outside of you, what about family members, your friends, maybe people you've worked with in the past? Like how their experiences have been during this?
Similar, and I've actually known a couple of family members who've actually had COVID.
Oh wow!
Not really severe cases, but and in fact, one family member who was really anti-vax, who actually ended up getting it, which was kind of interesting. Yeah. So that's been. It's been interesting and being kind of the isolation because we normally have a family that gather for big occasions. So like we've missed, the last Christmas, and Thanksgiving and all of that. So that's been interesting as well.
I see. And actually, speaking of anti-vax, because I'm sorry about that. We're in the other office building right now. We, as a people, when it comes to the medical field, we've had a shaky history. I was recently interviewed about it. Why do I take the vaccine? This, that, and, what were my reasonings and what was my process? And it was really, it made me, going through this process, I had to really figure out what really am I comfortable with what's going inside my body. And that has always been something that we as a culture, we as a people have struggled with because usually people don't really care what happens to our body. And
with some good reason, the Tuskegee experiment.
Yes,
that whole
that's
story.
Something that's always been brought up, yes.
Yeah, that, and I mean, there have been, other studies like that haven't really come to our attention. So there's kind of an understandable reluctance among some black people. And I get that. So for me, it's a matter of connecting with science that you can trust. There are black scientists.
Yes.
There are black doctors.
There are black doctors. There are black scientists, and they are fire. They are amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So look at that if you don't trust the general population. That was kind of my take on it.
I think for me, I think it was finding people who looked like me, but also understood where we were coming from. And I feel maybe that because I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't do this because it's your body. At the end of the day, whatever happens to your body is, it's your choice. But really talking with people who kind of understand the science, but also know where you're coming from, I think is super, super important, especially when there's a lot of misinformation being thrown out everywhere. It's kind of, for me, it was extremely hard to kind of figure out what is this vaccine, what is, because it's like, oh, it's a government ploy to control us. No, it's this, that, and the third. It's this, that, and the third. And it's like, who am I supposed to trust during this time,
I get that, but it's like, the government has a lot of ways to control us other than this. This is probably one of the least things you need to worry about. Yeah, that's interesting, because I do know a couple of people who are very heavily like, I'm not getting it, don't ask me, and okay, that's you. But then I have to think, well, then I kind of can't gather with you if that's your... Because it's like... And this is the thing, the whole thing about this being a political issue. When did the health and safety of the nation become political? Because you have to take vaccines to go to school. You have to you have to wear seatbelts. That's government control. I mean, so, I think a lot of misinformation for people with kind of agendas that don't have anything to do with people's well-being has been out there.
Yes, I think that's... Yes, it's just like, oh, wait, I can now kind of gather these people on my side, and if I can get them on this, what else can they support me on so that I can continue to have the position that I'm currently in? I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about.
I might name names.
And I think that's a terrible, terrible thing, because, when we have families, we have family members, we have people's lives who are at stake, and it's always like easy to kind of dismiss until it happens to you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's super easy to go, oh, this is never gonna happen to me. I got, I do this, that, and the third. And then when your sister or your brother, like my girlfriend, she got COVID, and when I found that out, I was terrified. I was like, we couldn't even go inside the hospital to make sure she was okay. She thank God she only went for one night, but just to hear like, oh yeah, Kiera was in the hospital. What do you mean she's in the hospital? I was just sat out there, and I was like really thinking like, this is really, really serious. Like, this is not just some run-of-the-mill flu that everybody's kind of making out to be, and yes, it's affecting some people, but you don't know until it happens to you, and like I said, I'm not going to tell people what to do, because it's your body, your choice, but really, really think about the ways in which you interact with people. Because as you said before, like even, some of my jobs, and my two jobs that I work with or stuff I do outside, like we have to like be like, okay, if you're not going to get vaccinated, well, then you have to step in
get away from me.
Yeah, essentially, you can't be around the kids, or you can't be doing this or that, because of how serious the situation is. Which is it's
when you think about the way that people shape issues. It's like just thinking about that makes me think about the whole January 6th thing. Seriously, you saw this with your own eyes. Well, if you were a serious investigator of it, you saw it with your own eyes, and that you're going to allow people to reconfigure it into something that wasn't that bad.
No, it was...
To me, it's a matter of critical thinking, and that's a thing that goes back to education, I think. Teaching students how to, not what to think, but how to think critically.
How to really, I think that's something that's not really been taught at schools, and it's even today, I think I still have to like step back out of the situation, how I feel, and really think of the facts, because, and just as an example with the January 6th thing, it was, for me, I was just, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, well, that sounds about right, a bunch of white people rioting, and this, that, and the third, but I had to step back and see how, like, serious the situation is, because it's like, if it was a bunch of melanated people storming the gates of the White House, this would be an entirely different discussion.
Different discussion.
Like, even with, the riots that's been happening over the last couple of years, the Black Lives movements and the incited riots, it's like, I don't agree with property damage, but at what point can we just sit here? Like, at what point do we go, okay, well, we're just gonna keep sitting here and, peaceful protests, and you tell us where we were supposed to go so we don't get hurt, and then we're just, at what point do we go, enough is enough? Like, our voices are not being heard, and like I said, I don't agree with the property damage and things of that nature that's been happening, but on another note, it's like, what else? How else are we supposed to have a conversation if you won't listen to us?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but what is more important? This building, this window, or my life?
Very true. From an individual's perspective, it's like anything can happen to me, and you won't even. It can be on the news. You wouldn't even. You just flip over the channel.
Yeah.
That deals with other societies. Issues and problems. But to go back, if it was a bunch of military people, would you be saying the same thing?
Well, look for a young guy. I'm trying to remember where this was, whose mother drove him in to one of the protests. A young white guy who had a gun, who was essentially, and I'm trying to remember where this was. I know some people who are listening will remember it. And essentially, kind of got the police kind of and ended up shooting someone. I'm trying to remember where this was. I want to say South Carolina, but I'm not positive. But yeah, it's a whole other ball game.
Another ball game, yes. Let's see, it is 27 minutes now. So let's kind of, because I can go all day. I would love to go all day, but I can't because I gotta go back to transit and you got 1,000 different things to do. But I always ask at the end of I try to ask at every end of the podcast, what are some words of wisdom you would like to share with the community, either to the youth or to my generation, my mother's generation, what are some words of wisdom you could share?
Wow. I would say it's important to connect with your history, whatever that is, whether it's if you're an artist, who are the people who came before you in that same path? If you're a person of color, what were the struggles? What is the history of that struggle? And how does it relate to you in your everyday life? In terms of what you want to do with your life, I know it's kind of easy to say, but in a way it's about following your own path. Because there was never a person like you ever before, and there never will ever be a person like you again. So, think about what it is that gives you joy, and if you can, follow that path. I think that's important. Because otherwise you kind of spend your life doing stuff that you really don't want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ms. Deborah.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I always love spending time with you and talking with you. Once again, guys, this podcast will be available on our website at keepingtherecipes.com, all one word. And any updates, any snippets, anything that we share will be on our social media, all under the name Transit Arts. If you want to shout out your social media and your website that you have now,
my website,
super excited.
DeborahJamesTucker.com.
Yes.
Also have an artist page on Facebook, Deborah James Tucker.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Please check her out. Her performances are phenomenal, truly inspiring. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you guys next time. And that is it. That is pretty much it. Thank you once again. I really appreciate it. I'll be editing all this.
Keeping the recipes.
Website up and running because
The Transit Arts.
But